I'm Gabe Lullo, and welcome to the Do Hard Things podcast. We're talking to go-to-market leaders and entrepreneurs who have conquered the challenges, the hustle, and the grind. Get ready for real talk, real insights, and no fluff.
But the hardest thing in the world right now is not actually closing deals, it's actually getting somebody's attention.
If you don't have that hook in that first 5 to 10 seconds, guess what? They're going to scroll to the next one.
You need to go in and you need to make it sound like yourself. That's the biggest piece of the puzzle. And I promise you, we can all tell.
The people that are trolls and the people that are haters never done the thing that you're doing.
I love doing this podcast because I get a front row seat to some of the greatest minds in sales.
Gone are the days of saying stay in your lane. When you're an executive leader and you're an enterprise-wide leader, there are no lanes. You've got to be partners.
Curiosity is like when the type of questions you ask is sometimes the value that you bring.
I need you to tell me when you're ready to buy or what you're ready to do. And I think it's changed so much into like adding more value. And if you're not doing that, then you're definitely going to come off as desperate.
High pressure selling is like a dinosaur tactic at this point.
No parent is like, oh, you should be a salesperson when you grow up, right? Everyone's like a doctor, lawyer, whatever crap. It's never salespeople.
It's not your job to motivate people. It's your job to find motivated people.
It's not cockiness. It's not arrogance. It's confidence knowing I know this and I know that I can help you.
From where I started to where I am today is all because I learned how to sell.
And there's too many people who have only been doing this for 5 freaking minutes. Sit down, close your mouth, actually go out there and get yourself beat up. Then come back and tell me if something is dead or not.
That is exactly why I started this podcast, because right there, that's the epitome of doing hard things.
Welcome back to the Do Hard Things podcast with Lexi and Gabe. Today's guest brings strategy, structure, and execution together in modern B2B sales. John Zurowski is the founder of JZ Sales Consulting, where he provides fractional sales leadership to help companies grow without the overhead of a full-time hire. He specializes in aligning go-to-market strategy, optimizing RevOps, enabling sales teams, and implementing CRM systems like Salesforce to drive scalable growth. John's not just a strategist. He's a builder who helps companies grow smarter, not just faster. John, welcome to the show.
All right, welcome everyone back to the Do Hard Things podcast. This is Gabe and Lexi sitting down with John, and John is amazing. We're a huge fan of yours, first off, and I'm so excited that you're here. But it's funny, John, because I always ask this question when we kick this off, right? Because do hard things, sales, business, marketing, it's very interesting because most people typically don't go to college or school to get into sales and what we do. So walk me through it, right? What's your origin story and how did you get started in this and how did you become so passionate at it?
Yeah, I think you nailed it there. And I've never met anyone in my life that says, I want to be a sales professional when they're at school. Everyone goes and over the years, some of the best salespeople I hired came from like psychology programs and like totally unrelated. So yeah, no one gets there. I think for me, like I've always been a leader through my career, like going and working in restaurants throughout college, put me into management role. Then I went and I actually worked down in Mexico for a short stint when I was just finishing college, didn't know what I wanted to do. And I remember I started kind of hustling like nightclub passes at that point. And then I'm like, this is a lot of work. Maybe I can get people to do this for me. So then I started kind of building a team to do it for me. And then I'd pay them out commissions. And I'm like, oh, this is works. So then I came back, got my first corporate role, and I was super fortunate. At a super young age of 25, I got given an opportunity to become a sales leader, working for a big Fortune 500 at the time. So I was put in at a young age into this role and thrown right into it. So since then, I haven't looked back.
That's an awesome story. And I've seen it all over LinkedIn, how fractional work is really on the horizon. And I meet with a bunch of fractional CMOs, CROs daily for our partnership program. And I know you built your consulting around a fractional model. What gap did you see in the market that made you go all in on this approach?
Yeah, so I think after 20 years of corporate, I felt I learned a lot, and I also saw a real big opportunity in the market, specifically on the sales side. So fractional, I wouldn't say it was new when I started my business, when you look at like finance and IT and other disciplines. But on the sales side, it was really not accepted yet because the old recipe of how you run a business, everyone was adopting that. It was very foreign to think, how do I just hire someone for 1 day a week and they can deliver results? But as this movement started happening, we're seeing it be adopted more. And the things that that really drew me to is one, I'd been leading a team that was looking after the small business sector, and these small business leaders were repeating the same cycle of how they grow their company, and they would struggle and they would hit this wall and they would either go to business or they didn't know how to go past that. And that's because they would hire sales leaders so early and they would think they have to go hire a top talent salesperson. The other part is these small businesses would often take a university grad, give them a fancy title, call them VP of sales, and expect them to deliver results. And that wasn't working either. And then I think the third part was decades of how you run a sales team is how everyone keeps doing things in these small businesses, and it's changing, like evolving and adapting to new ways to grow your business and conserve cash and not burn through it as fast. Open up the opportunity for a fractional sales model to come in, and that's where I decided to break off and open my business. So that's what I do now.
Yeah, and to springboard off of that, right? So before you were a consultant and advisor and a fractional sales leader, you were in the trenches. Now, you were similar to me. I was in the restaurant business too before I got into enterprise sales. But so we're not talking about maybe those trenches, right? But the trenches of building and selling and leading, where in those early days, talk about doing hard things, really did that guide you to bring those attributes, if you will, to what you're doing now from the consulting role?
Yeah. I think for me, like I grew up in a competitive sports background, and a lot of I think my behaviors and how I'm wired came from that learnings coming on. And through sports, I was drilled in my head three things, and those three are more true than ever in the business world and in doing what we do, and especially in sales. And that's hustle, mental toughness, and agility of change. You look at any top tier athlete, Tiger Woods, for example, he didn't get to where he is because he mentally breaks down when he's having to make that tough shot or because he didn't want to do those extra shots in practice. Well, that very much translates to when you're a sales leader and you are in the trenches, if you don't have the ability to hustle, show the ability to change and have that toughness, you'll lose versus other people that do have that. And that agility to change part is the one I'd say most important in my opinion, because business changes so much year over year, decade over decade, whatever you want to look at. And the people that are embracing the change, accepting it, and looking at how to leverage it are the ones that are going to win every day. But there's also that whole group of people in the trenches that keep doing things the same way they've always done. Just like small businesses always go to rush to hire a sales leader and then they go bankrupt because they spent too much money. So those would be the three I would say.
Awesome. I would love to hear your experience and advice on this. So, you specialize in working with small and mid-sized businesses. What's one of the toughest situations you've helped a client navigate in those early growth stages?
I would say the common one that I come across in every business is what do they do? Like really what the hell do they do? You sit down with a group of people and you ask the employees, what does your company do? What problems you solve? You will have the most diverse set of answers and you'll be more confused than you ever are before. So trying to get just simply the employees aligned on the very simple concept of like, what do we do and what problems are we solving for will set them up to accelerate in many different ways for a company. So that's one of the first things I try to do is helping these companies that are in that situation navigate answering that question.
Yeah, absolutely. So when it comes to sales, we were talking about the in the trenches, the hustle, the grind, right? Being gritty and pushing through that. And I think that's, half of it, right? The other half is alignment, which is really the hardest part, right? Aligning sales, aligning marketing, aligning customer success. Like you mentioned, sitting everyone down in the company and they say different things about what they do. I think they would say the same thing, very different about what their job is compared to sales is, or compared to marketing, or compared to client success. So, how do we get all three of these departments on the same page working together? Where does that come in?
Yeah, one, I mean, every business says they want to do better here, and I used to work at Salesforce, and I got to give them credit. Their product suite was phenomenal at helping break down those barriers and bring sales, marketing, and customer success together. But the reality is, most small businesses aren't in a position to be getting all those tools and doing that. And I'd say one of the barriers that the small businesses struggle with is the protectionism of their department. Each team feels threatened that if they start to share their information and other people can poke around what they're doing, that now might expose them to issues and questions they don't want to deal with. So the resistance automatically comes up where they say, you know what, we don't think we need to go through the costs and the effort and the training to get everyone here. But once people or a leader buys into the purpose of value, or you're putting the client first and you're realizing that bringing these departments together is not because we're told to do it, it's because it's going to help our clients have the best experience when they work with you, then it starts to, I think, break down the barriers that it's not about me, it's about how we help the clients. And that's when you can start to see real movement.
Awesome. And sales on the flip side can also be very hard mentally with highs and lows. Was there ever a moment where you felt like things weren't working, but in hindsight, it was really a breakthrough?
Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot. I'm actually thinking of my first client when I started my company in fractional, and I'm sure every business owner goes through a similar experience where your best learning is that first crappy client. Don't know if I can say crappy on here, but it's it was like a client that actually went bankrupt and they stopped paying me. And I mean, it's easy to say, "Oh man, what could I have done different, and how did I influence this?" But that experience was great for me because I did everything I could control there, but sometimes you're dealing with just an owner of a business that does not want to make the changes needed to adapt, to show the agility to change, all the things I've talked about. And as a result, they went bankrupt. But what I took away from that is it made it very clear to me as a business owner, I have the luxury of choosing who I want to work with. When you're a full time employee for a company, you don't have that luxury as much. You're kind of committed to that one company. But for me, I only have limited bandwidth. So now I get to choose, is this owner, is he progressive? Is he going to trust me? Is he going to be humble and feedback and looking to make the changes needed? Or are they going to sit on their high stool and try to do things the way they've always done it?
Yeah. By the way, you can say crap on here. The only kid that watches our podcast is my daughter, and she hears it enough, so it's okay.
Perfect.
So let's talk scaling, right? Because Salesforce is such a great training ground. It's such an amazing product, and it's absolutely one of the biggest, pieces of putting things together in regards to structuring and putting processes together and getting aligned. But then when we see companies start to scale, they're focusing so much on process and procedure that flexibility and pivoting and getting creative starts to dwindle and get hindered. So how do you balance that, right? How are you able to balance being able to pivot and being flexible for your clients and as you scale without, having that structure and process in place so everyone is on the same page?
Yeah, I think the small business world does it way better than the big corporate world, I'd say. That's one of the hard things that people struggle with when you work for a large corporation is flexibility is not generally in the way you would describe these big companies, but it generally comes natural to small companies because they have to be. They're figuring out everything as they go and they need to be fast. They don't have the luxury of time to wait. So when we come in as like a fractional or when we come in to work with these clients, there's always a set of priorities and we absolutely have to work within some of the ways they need to. But as we build process, I focus on like making sure that process is not set in stone. It may change. We're going to listen to what the employees need, what the clients need, and we have to be flexible. And back to the same theme of this whole talk track, we have to be agile to change. We need to, as a collective group, understand that what we're putting in place today is absolutely able to change if we see a way to improve it over time.
Yep.
Awesome. Many teams find initial success, but a significant number of teams eventually encounter a plateau. From your perspective, what separates a sales org that hits a ceiling from one that breaks through it?
Yeah, so if you ever played for sports teams before and you've seen the ones that are good and bad, it's the same in sales. I would say for me, the two that come to mind are mindset and hustle. I'm a huge Philadelphia Eagles football fan, so don't hold that against me for anyone that's not an Eagles fan. But I look back to they won the Super Bowl in 2017, and their MVP season quarterback at the time goes down with an injury. And it's easy for a team to say, all right, we hit our ceiling. We're not going to go any farther. Our fearless leader is down. Instead, you kind of get a new player comes up and he wins over the group, and they show that they can rise to the occasion. They win a Super Bowl, huge success story. And sales is no different. Like you are going to hit barriers all the time, and those can come from like right now. There's all kinds of unknowns in the economy due to government and policy that's in place, and those we can't let us stop us. We just have to find the mindset and the hustle to say this is a phase and this will pass. Just like people that have kids, I know you mentioned you've got a daughter. Everything is a phase. And this too shall pass. When they're having a moment of emotions, keep pushing through the tough parts because it does get easier on the other end.
Yeah, that's interesting because it leads me to my question, right? So you've worn a ton of hats: sales leader, strategist, coach. Let's just kind of switch gears here and just kind of talk about, your purpose, your legacy, right? What is driving you each and every single year? Because it's so important. I always talk about it to our sellers is like, you need to have your why in place. So, a lot of our audience members, they want to be you one day. They're new sellers, they're SDRs, they're AEs. They want to grow their career and ultimately have the success you've had. What is that, let's call it a carrot, or what is that, purpose that drives you to continually push through and build your business?
Yeah, I mean, leadership is tough. It sucks for a lot of people, and it will eat you alive and spit you out real quick. So you do need to be built for it. And the thing that keeps me loving it and wants me to keep driving is I genuinely enjoy the process of watching people go from where they're at to the next level and succeeding. So taking someone that's raw, you can see they got potential, and working with them and nurturing them and allowing them to succeed. I love that. And fractional gives me that very much. So as I started my business as a fractional leader, um, my success is actually when a client stops working with me, which seems weird. Like, why is that successful? It's because I put that client in a position where we've grown them to a point that they can replace me with a full-time leader. And to me, that's a success story. Just like raising kids and being able to send them off to college and knowing you did right as a parent, that's how I actually enjoy what I do. If I didn't have this, I probably would have been out of leadership a long time ago because it's just not worth the headaches that it comes with.
I love that. How do you help them build not just pipeline, but confidence and clarity for these first time sales leaders?
It's a lot of coaching, like education and trust that comes with it. So coaching part of it is probably the biggest is constantly being able to work with someone, hear them, listen to them. You almost feel like a counselor at times. And I say that because my wife is a counselor, my mother's a psychiatrist, and my sister's a life coach. So I get surrounded by three super powerful influences in my life that have shaped me to like love the coaching part and asking the right questions and helping them. And then when you move into business, you take all that and then you back it up with data. And these leaders that are fresh and new, they really grow because they can start to see how the data tells a story. And then with your coaching style, you can actually take that conversation from the data and use that to make them better.
Love it. So this is a two-parter. I want to talk about this because you talk a lot about, sustainable growth versus hyper growth, right? And so when you're working with companies, how do you make sure that they're not having just quick, hyper fast growth and then they burn out? And then how do you work with them to make sure they're having sustainable growth?
Yeah, I think so. There's foundational pieces that every business needs, and most don't have any of them, to be honest, when I start working with them. But there's foundational pieces that get put in place that are there for sustainable growth. So I call it kind of future proofing. You're putting things in to future proof your business that in 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, you're going to be able to keep this. And then there's systems and there's phases in a company where hyper growth is possible, and there's times where you're going to rein it in and pull it back. And you have to know, and this comes really just comes from experience. You can't come and overinvest in all these tools, which used to happen, during COVID. Companies would buy every single technology piece they could, and then have no idea what they use them for. And at the end of it, they were inflated with all these costs. So I would say experience helps us see where we want to balance. Is this a time to be building out sustainable growth, or is this a phase where we need to build out hyper growth? And it's okay to adjust back and forth. It's not one or the other.
Awesome. I'm going to do a little shift here and ask the famous question. How do you think AI and automation is going to reshape the sales process, and what should leaders be doing right now to get ready to adapt to that?
I don't think it's possible to have a podcast without someone throwing an AI question first. But I'm waiting to see where it came out. I mean, everyone has their opinion on AI and what it is to them. So this is just one man's opinion, not right or wrong. I absolutely think AI is revolutionary, and I think it's changing the way we operate in every way. But I also believe AI is not replacing genuine, authentic buying experiences that clients still want and need. So AI is meant to be, I think, a productivity tool to support us in sales and help us. I don't love AI coming in to replace genuine, authentic conversations. And people still buy from people. It's an old saying in sales, and it hasn't gone away. And you'll probably get the sentiment when you talk to enough people with a question like this. There's a lot of irritation and fatigue with AI, and people waving the flag that we're AI, we can do anything we want because we're AI. But do people really understand like what that means for the problems they're trying to solve, and why does it matter? So I would say the irritation comes from people using AI as strictly a marketing wording and buzzwords, but it's not actually helping clients understand why they should buy the certain solution or the service that you're selling. And we need to go back to those fundamentals and what is it we're actually trying to do for clients, and not let AI be the whole thing we're talking about.
Yeah. And by the way, that's one person's opinion, but you also got two persons' opinion agreeing with you. So we're not alone there. I agree with you wholeheartedly. So speaking of that, being ahead of the curve, right? Knowing what's coming out, knowing new tools, new tactics, new trends, new methodologies. How do you, across multiple orgs, how do you stay sharp? And most importantly, how do you recommend, right, to our audience, how do they stay sharp? How do they keep learning? How do they keep delivering value, and not just, stay cold or get passed by?
Yeah, I would say like never stop learning, and don't trust that whoever you're working with or for is your sole source of information and training. Like you need to take initiative and you need to do it yourself. There's so many incredible ways to constantly be learning out there, and doing it on your own initiative, whether it's joining communities. Like the power of the communities I'm part of have been a game changer in my career, or being part of like local networking events and learning from others, or having a mentor, or publications that you're part of. So like when I join like a new client of mine, and I onboard, I jump in the deep end right away, and I don't wait for them to spoon feed me what I need to learn. They're gonna give me what they need to give me, but I'll jump in the deep end and say, okay, I don't know anything about maybe this industry, so let's go figure out what I need to learn, their language and talk tracks and wording that they're going to use, and publications and social media influencers, and just trying to do what I can control to learn what I can.
Totally agree. I think that's awesome. And I think also LinkedIn's a great place. That's what I use for a lot of those things you mentioned. So really agree with that. For founders or reps listening who feel stuck or overwhelmed, what's one thing that you would coach to implement this week that you think could start making a change?
Oh, so many different ones. And the one that comes to mind, I wouldn't say is necessarily a hard one in college, but it's more like if you're feeling stuck, focus on the fundamentals. Um, Going back to my sports analogies, I play baseball. You go in a rut. You don't get hits. Well, you're not out there trying new things all of a sudden. You're going back to fundamentals, saying what got me here, what's worked before for me, and how can I start to repeat that and just focus on the most basic things you can that you can control. When you're stuck, it just takes one small little step or small little win to get that little wind in your sail again, and that comes from the small things that you do. So focus on that as much as you can. The fundamentals and sales specifically, it would be maybe just make those extra calls, reach out to clients you haven't talked to in a bit, maybe review your proposal with another set of eyes and see if you're positioning it right and if your pricing strategy is appealing or will catch our attention. Like look at doing those tiny things because you do need to dig deep and you do need to hustle when you're in that moment. And as I mentioned earlier, like this too shall pass. Everything was a phase. We all go through it in sales. We all hit a rut. It's impossible for anybody not to. And eventually, before you know it, you're back in the sales vortex and it's raining deals on you. So enjoy it while you can.
Absolutely, man. This has been awesome, John. Thanks so much for your time. So before we depart, who is the exact ICP? Who's the buyer that would you would love to talk to, so we can encourage them to reach out to you, and how what's the best way to get a hold of you as well?
Yeah, I'd say two kind of clients fall into my ideal client that I like to work with. One is you're an established company, maybe you're a mature company, been around for a while, but you're just stuck. Your sales aren't going anywhere. Maybe you're founder led and you're like, how do we take this to the next level? And we want to build out a more repeatable sales motion where it's not built off the relationships of the owner. That's one category. The other one is you're maybe a newer company, a startup company, and you're looking to build something out that is both sustainable and provide you that hyper growth. That's where you want to invest, I'd say, like baby steps towards getting to where you need to. Instead of dumping a bunch of money at a sales leader, look at a fractional leader that can get you to a point, and then once you're at that point, you cut ties and you invest in that full-time leader, and that's a good problem to have.
Love it. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for spending some time with us. I'm assuming LinkedIn's the best way to get a hold of you.
Of course, yeah, LinkedIn is the best way.
Awesome. Well, thank you everybody for joining the show, and we'll see you on the next one.